Yeah, I think my dad really enjoys it. He's been a mechanic his whole life. I think he enjoys the job satisfaction of it when the car's finished and done.
He bought another Bugatti, and this time Bugatti has absolutely no idea what's coming. Not a Chiron, not a Per Sport, a Veyron, the car that started everything, the car that made Bugatti untouchable. And Mat Armstrong just bought a wrecked one in secret. Nobody knew. Nobody saw it coming. And when Bugatti finds out everything is about to explode all over again, he bought another Bugatti. And this time Bugatti has absolutely no idea what is coming. Not a Chiron, not a Porsche, a Veyron, the car that started everything. The car that made Bugatti untouchable for an entire generation. And Mat Armstrong just bought a wrecked one in secret. Nobody knew. Nobody saw it coming. And when Bugatti finds out everything is about to explode all over again, let that land for just a moment. Because after everything that happened with the Chiron, after the locked VIN and the refused parts and the CEO's public statement and the months of drama that turned one YouTube rebuild into a global automotive story, most people assumed Mat Armstrong would take a breath. Step back, let the dust settle, maybe do something smaller, something safer, something that did not involve going back to the exact manufacturer that tried to shut him down with the full weight of their corporate infrastructure. Most people assumed that. Most people were wrong. Because Mat Armstrong did not step back. He did not slow down. He did not look at everything Bugatti threw at him and decided it was time to find an easier fight. He looked at everything Bugatti threw at him and went straight back into the ring. Quieter this time, more deliberate, more focused. And he came back with a secret Bugatti Veyron that nobody in the world knew about until right now. To understand why this moment is so seismic, why it sent shockwaves through every corner of the automotive world the second it became known, you need to understand what the Bugatti Veyron actually is and what it represents in the history of everything that has happened between Mat Armstrong and this manufacturer. Because the Veyron is not just another car. The Veyron is a car that started the modern hypercar era. When Bugatti unveiled the Veyron in 2005, the automotive world stopped, completely stopped, because nothing like it had ever existed before. 1,000 horsepower from a 16-cylinder engine with 4 turbochargers, a top speed of over 250 miles per hour, a car so technically complex, so engineering intensive, so far beyond anything else on the road at that time that most people in the industry genuinely questioned whether it could even be built. Volkswagen Group spent more money developing the Veyron than the car ever made back in sales. It was not a business decision. It was a statement, a declaration that Bugatti existed at a level above commerce, above practicality, above every conventional metric by which cars are judged. And that statement echoed through the automotive world for the next 2 decades. Every hypercar that came after the Veyron existed in its shadow. Every manufacturer that tried to compete with its numbers was chasing a benchmark that Bugatti had set deliberately, expensively, and completely. And now that car, that iconic, history-defining, industry-shaping machine, has ended up in Mat Armstrong's hands. And Bugatti is not going to like it one single bit. But here is what nobody knew when this story first started to emerge. Here is the detail that changes everything about how you understand this moment and what it means. The Veyron that Mat Armstrong acquired is not just any Veyron. It is not a standard specification car with standard damage and a standard rebuild story waiting to be told. This particular Veyron carries a history that goes deeper than its salvage title suggests. A provenance that makes it more significant, more controversial, and more valuable than its auction price reflected. And that provenance, that hidden layer of history beneath the visible damage, is the reason Mat Armstrong moved on this car in secret. No announcements, no teasers, no social media hints. Because in the automotive world, when a car with a story this significant becomes available, the window between knowing about it and losing it to someone else is measured not in days, but in hours. Mat Armstrong knew. He moved, and he got it. And now the whole world is about to find out why. Let's talk about the damage. Because understanding what happened to this Veyron is essential to understanding the scale of the challenge that Mat Armstrong has just taken on. And the scale of this challenge is unlike anything he has faced before. The Bugatti Chiron was complex, The Lamborghini Urus was structurally compromised, but the Veyron presents a category of difficulty that sits entirely on its own, because the Veyron was built in 2005 with technology that was revolutionary for its time. And revolutionary technology from 2 decades ago means something very specific in the context of a rebuild. It means that the part supply chain has had 20 years to shrink. It means that specialist knowledge about these specific systems exists in fewer and fewer places as the people who built them retire or move on. It means that diagnosing a problem in a Veyron systems requires not just modern diagnostic capability, but a deep understanding of how those systems were engineered at a time when the solutions they represented were genuinely unprecedented. And it means that sourcing what cannot be diagnosed and replaced from existing stock requires a network of contacts, a depth of patience, and a willingness to spend that goes beyond even what the Chiron rebuild demanded. Mat Armstrong knew all of this when he bought the car. He bought it anyway, because that is exactly who he is. The physical damage to this Veyron was severe in ways that became clear only gradually as the assessment process began. Front-end impact of significant force. Bodywork destruction that went beyond the panels into the structure beneath them. And water. Water in places that a car worth over £1 million should never have water. Because one of the defining characteristics of the Veyron's engineering is the extraordinary density of its systems. Every cubic centimeter of space in that car is occupied by something critical. The cooling system alone involves more radiators than most cars have total components. And when water gets into systems that were engineered to operate with zero moisture tolerance, the damage it causes is not always visible. It is not always immediate. It reveals itself slowly over time, as systems that appeared functional begin to fail in ways that trace back to water ingress that happened months or years before the car arrived in the workshop. That slow revelation, that gradual uncovering of hidden damage, is one of the most challenging aspects of any serious rebuild. And with a Veyron, it is amplified by the sheer complexity of everything that water could have reached. But here is where the story takes its first shocking turn. Because during the initial assessment of this Veyron, Mat Armstrong's team discovered something that nobody who looked at this car before the auction had noticed. Something that the auction listing did not mention. Something that changed the entire financial and technical calculation of what this rebuild was going to require. The gearbox. Because the Veyron 7-speed dual clutch gearbox is not a component you simply replace with a call to a part supplier. It is a bespoke, Bugatti-specific, extraordinarily complex piece of engineering that in the years since the Veyron production ended has become one of the rarest and most sought-after components in the entire classic hypercar world. Finding one in serviceable condition is a challenge. Finding one at a price that makes financial sense within the context of a rebuild project is a challenge of an entirely different order. And finding out that the one in your freshly acquired Veyron is damaged beyond the point of simple repair in the first week of assessment, before a single body panel has been touched, is the kind of discovery that makes even the most experienced builders pause and ask themselves very seriously whether they fully understood what they got into. Mat Armstrong paused, and then he got into it anyway. Now, let's talk about Bugatti's position in all of this, because the manufacturer's response to what is happening in Mat Armstrong's workshop right now is not simply a repeat of what happened with the Chiron. It cannot be, because the world has changed since the Chiron drama. The EU right to repair legislation that Mat Armstrong's Chiron rebuild helped bring into public focus is now approaching its implementation date. The conversation around manufacturer gatekeeping and independent repair rights has moved from YouTube comment sections into legislative chambers and legal briefings at the highest levels of the automotive industry. And Bugatti, whatever their private feelings about what Mat Armstrong is doing, operates in a world where those feelings have to be balanced against a legal and regulatory environment that is shifting decisively away from the position they took during the Chiron rebuild. They cannot lock the VIN again without the world watching and drawing conclusions. They cannot refuse parts without that refusal becoming part of a much larger story about corporate overreach and the limits of manufacturer control. The situation has changed, and Bugatti knows it. But here is what nobody is saying out loud yet. Here is the conversation happening behind closed doors in the automotive industry right now that has not made it into the public conversation. The Veyron is no longer in production. Bugatti's parts obligations for a car this old exist in a different legal and practical framework than their obligations for a current model. The window of manufacturer support for a Veyron is not unlimited. And as that window narrows, as the official supply of genuine Veyron parts becomes more restricted simply through the passage of time and the exhaustion of new old stock, the independent rebuild community becomes not just a nuisance to be managed, but an essential part of how these cars survive at all. Mat Armstrong rebuilding a Veyron is not just a YouTube project. It is a preservation story. And preservation, in the automotive world, command a respect that conflict does not. The community response to the news of the secret Veyron acquisition was unlike anything Mat Armstrong's channel had seen before, even compared to the Chiron reveal, even compared to the Lamborghini Urus announcement. Because the Veyron carries a nostalgia, an emotional resonance with a generation of car enthusiasts who grew up watching it redefine what a car could be that the newer hypercars simply do not have in the same way. For millions of people, the Bugatti Veyron is not just a car, it is a memory. It is the poster on the bedroom wall. It is the car they looked at as children and decided that cars were worth caring about. And seeing that car wrecked and salvaged and sitting in Mat Armstrong's workshop, waiting to be brought back to life, triggered something in that audience that went beyond the usual excitement of a new rebuild project. It felt personal. It felt important. It felt like something that mattered beyond the numbers and the technical details and the sourcing challenges. It felt like saving something irreplaceable. And that emotional weight, that sense of cultural and personal significance that surrounds a particular car, is something that Mat Armstrong understood completely when he decided to keep the acquisition secret until he was ready to reveal it. Because the reveal was not just an announcement. It was a moment, a carefully constructed, deliberately timed moment designed to hit the audience with the full force of everything this car represents before a single spanner had been turned. The secret was not kept because Mat Armstrong was hiding something. The secret was kept because some things deserve to arrive with the weight they carry. An erect Bugatti Veyron being brought back from the dead by the man who already embarrassed Bugatti once deserves to arrive at full weight. Now let us talk about what the successful completion of this rebuild would mean. Not just for Mat Armstrong, not just for the Cars Facto community, but for the Bugatti Veyron itself and for every person who ever loved it. Because a properly restored Veyron